This man successfully fed his country's intelligence secrets to the Soviet Union for nearly 2 decades. He was identified, he was caught, and yet he lived out the rest of his life as a free man. His name was Walter Clayton. From a desk inside the Australian government, he mapped out the security infrastructure and transmitted those findings directly to Moscow. This is not a story of a spy who outran the law. It is the account of an intelligence service that found its mole and realized it was paralyzed by its own secrets. In the years following the Second World War, the focus of Australian intelligence shifted. Protecting internal government data became a primary objective as the nation navigated the opening years of the Cold War. To meet this threat, the government established the Australian Security Intelligence Organisation in 1949. Its mandate was clear: find and remove communist operatives embedded in the civil service. But the timing proved disastrous. By the time this new agency was operational, Walter Clayton had already been working inside the government for years. Clayton did not steal blueprints or break into safes. He used his role as a reliable bureaucrat to observe the human networks of Australian intelligence, documenting who was trusted and how the system functioned. He was successful because he looked exactly like the people he was betraying. His weapon was the daily trust of the colleagues sitting right next to him. Clayton was not motivated by money, and records show no evidence of blackmail. He was a deeply committed ideological operative. His journey began during the Great Depression. Seeing the economic collapse of the 1930s firsthand, Clayton joined the Communist Party of Australia at age 24. The party provided a hidden infrastructure, a web of committed members positioned in labor unions, universities, and government offices across the country. Clayton became an agent of influence, using his connections to determine who was hired and who received security clearances, quietly steering the bureaucracy from within. Spies driven by ideology are the hardest to detect. They do not act out of erratic greed. They operate with the calm, patient certainty of someone who believes they are on the right side of history. In the 1940s, while Clayton worked in Canberra, American analysts began a multi-decade effort known as the VENONA project. This was a signals intelligence operation aimed at decrypting the thousands of encrypted telegrams sent between Moscow and its foreign embassies. Soviet encryption relied on one-time pads, which are mathematically unbreakable if used correctly. But under the pressure of wartime volume, Soviet clerks began reusing pages of random numbers, violating the core requirement that every page be used once and then destroyed. This chart displays the result of that administrative error, showing the layers of translation as analysts converted cipher groups back into readable text. When these cables reached Australia, they contained specific codenames. The evidence began to point toward a single individual, Walter Clayton. VENONA had found the mole. However, because the decryption method was a closely guarded secret, the breakthrough would ultimately protect the spy rather than convict him. The investigation reached a turning point in 1954, when Soviet diplomat Vladimir Petrov defected to the West. Petrov provided physical documents and names that corroborated the VENONA cables. With this secondary confirmation, ASIO finally had the confidence to bring Clayton in for questioning. In the interrogation room, investigators faced a man who had spent decades preparing for this confrontation. Clayton remained completely cooperative. He answered only the exact questions, provided plausible explanations for every meeting, giving the officers nothing to use. Most suspects eventually slip up or panic, but an operative who understands the bureaucracy can sit in a room and effectively neutralize an investigation simply by being careful. By the mid-1950s, the investigators knew Clayton was the spy. The cables left no doubt. But in a democratic system, a criminal conviction requires evidence that can be presented in an open court. Using the VENONA intercepts as evidence would alert the Soviets that their codes were broken. Prosecuting one spy would destroy the intelligence sharing relationship with the United States and the United Kingdom. The cost of a conviction was simply too high. It is a foundational truth of the intelligence world. Preserving a strategic advantage across 5 nations is always prioritized over delivering justice to a single man. Clayton never faced a jury. Instead, his security clearances were quietly allowed to expire, and he was eased out of government service. This strategy of containment stopped the flow of information, but it allowed a traitor to walk away with no legal consequences. This quiet removal denied the public a trial. It ensured the specifics of Clayton's work remained within government archives, leaving an internal breach to be handled entirely behind closed doors. The true extent of the damage, the compromised operations, and the agents put at risk remains locked in classified files. The technology of espionage has evolved since the 1950s, but the core vulnerability has not. The most dangerous enemy is not the one trying to break into the building. It is the one already sitting at the desk inside. And sometimes the only way to stop them is to let them walk away.